Welcome to Process to Profitability, a podcast all about the tools and strategies you need to serve your clients and grow your small business, hosted by me, Samantha Mabe of Lemon and the Sea. Join me as I chat with creative entrepreneurs and small business owners about how they built and grew their businesses and how you can do the same in a way that fits you. Let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of Process to Profitability. Today I am joined by Mallika Malhotra of Mikifoto & Co., who is a brand photographer and brand story strategist who works with women entrepreneurs, inspiring them to express themselves, share their stories, and unleash their creativity through photography, branding, and live workshops. She combines her strategic business sense with her creative photography skills to help her fellow lady bosses stand out and energize their message with confidence. Based in northern New Jersey, Mallika also teaches live workshops on branding, vision boarding, and photography. When she's not taking photos or building brands, she's at home with her 3 sons, husband, drinking coffee or red wine, and dreaming about their next global adventure. Today, Mallika and I talked all about brand photography, what it is, where you can use it, and how you can get the best images possible, whether you're using a brand photographer or somebody who is just going to help you capture your brand story through imagery. We chat about where you can use these images online, the best places to share these images in a way that is really going to connect with your dream client. So join us today as we talk all about connecting to your clients through brand photography, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, Mallika. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and how you got started in your business?
Sure. So my name is Mallika Malhotra, and my business is Mikifoto & Co. I live in New Jersey, and I am a brand photographer and brand story strategist. I work with women entrepreneurs, and I help them develop a visual strategy so that they can create photography that's storytelling and impactful, and that will help them sort of stand out in our online business worlds. I've been in photography for about 9 years, and I started doing children and family because I had a young family back in 2000 if I've been doing this 9 years, 2017? That's a long time ago. But I shifted in the last 3 years to focus more on business and branding because I just got more involved in the entrepreneurial world and really loved kind of the strategy part of the business and diving in deep into, why people did what they did and their work. And combining that with the creative part was really a great and fun place for me to be. And so I've shifted and pivoted my business a few years ago. And now I only do brand photography, and I also help my clients with that strategy part, the brand story part, because I feel they go hand in hand to really create impactful images.
Awesome. So can you explain what brand photography is and how small business owners can use it?
Sure. So, brand photography is kind of a newish concept right now. It's kind of this new niche in photography. And I think it's because, online business and social media is so on the rise. So, we as business owners really need high quality photos to communicate what our message is. So brand photography really is customized professional photos that communicate the essence of your brand. And so it goes deeper than, let's say, a headshot, where it can communicate, who you are, what you do, how you're different than the competition or the rest of the market, and really how it feels to work with you. There is an emotional component to brand photography. And so, businesses can use this to get noticed in the industry. If you are in a saturated market, I'm a photographer, or if you're a coach, there's so many of us out there. So how can we connect with our audiences in a way? And visual storytelling is a powerful tool to allow us to connect, to sort of share what the journey is in our businesses and get deeper into the layers of our business. So that's basically what brand photography is. And, a few years ago, I thought, is this going to be like a trend? But I really feel like it's not a trend. It's because we live in this visual world right now, and because online business is booming, it is something that keeps continuing to grow, and there's a huge need for it because, we use our visuals to communicate what our brand stands for. And, from social media to websites to, online presentations or media kits, photography is such a big part of that. So I think it's a growing business and it's a growing trend.
Yeah. And I think as small business owners, especially, we're the face of our business a lot of times, even if it's not named after us. And so having photos that show who we are and what we do is really important to help people connect with us, and sort of get to know us before they're actually going to hire us.
Absolutely. I think, I read a statistic that said people are on your website for for 7 seconds. That's all you have to make your first impression. And so photography is a huge part of that. You want to establish yourself as professional, legitimate. You want to build trust with your audience. When they first come to see you, you want to communicate your personality so that they can click with you. So there's so many things riding on that first impression that it's important to put your face out there and to communicate all those different layers.
Yeah. And I'd love to know how you help your clients get photos that are going to connect with their dream clients, the people that they want to work with.
So, that's where the strategy part comes into play. Brand photography isn't like a show up and shoot kind of a session. There's a lot of planning that goes on behind the scenes. You really need to kind of dive into your brand foundation and define all of those pieces of what are your values? What do you believe in? What is the purpose of these photos, or even your business, your big why, the mission and the movement that you're trying to create. I ask my clients about, the personality. How do people describe you? What is your vibe like? I even ask them questions about what their vision is like. So, where do they want to be in 5 or 10 years? Because photography, images can maybe take you there even sooner if you capture it and share it, with your network or your audience. So in order to get these really storytelling, impactful images that are unique to your brand, I find that you really need to know what your story is first. And so I ask those questions, before any, date is set for the session. We go through a whole strategy session first to understand what your positioning is, how are you an expert? Who are you serving? What is your customer like? And we have that download and we look at that information and then create a visual strategy based on that. So it's an important step to take.
Okay. So it's more about figuring out how to tell the story than it is the actual images. You don't want something that's just pretty. You want it to have a purpose.
Yes, absolutely. I believe brand photography should have depth. It has purpose and it's intentional. So, of course you want your pictures to be beautiful and to be eye-catching, but I find that the ones that have the real depth or longevity, or the ones that connect best with your audience, they have a story there. There's a meaning behind it. So in order to get that, you really have to share that information with your photographer first, so that then you can get to the creative part, which is, taking that information and then brainstorming. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What are the locations and the props that can help communicate that? But you have to be grounded in the strategy first.
Yeah. I'd love to know, you mentioned that it's not just a headshot. So what kinds of images are you trying to capture for these business owners?
So, we really try to communicate, your process. Like, how do you work with your clients? What is your point of difference? How are you different than the other people in your market? So, for example, I work with a lot of coaches. And so one of the coaches that I work with, she actually doesn't do a lot of virtual sessions. She actually does the in-person. That is her point of difference. So we took a lot of photos of her with her clients. She actually invites them to her home in her dining room. They sit, they do work together, and it's a very intimate, close relationship. She has macaroons and there's tea. It's a beautiful experience. And so, that is one part of her story that we try to communicate in visuals. Another is personality. That could be a tipping point for a lot of people when they are choosing who they want to work with. And, again, we live in these competitive worlds where there's so many people doing the same thing as us. So how can we communicate and show visually what we're like? Do we have a certain mindset or a certain vibe? So, for example, I work with a lot of personal stylists. And so, one of them is very fun loving and playful. So we use, balloons as a prop for her branding images. And, you see her as very, like this love for life. And so that is sort of makes her unique. So we made sure to incorporate that. So there's a lot of different photo stories that you can share that kind of give that deeper look into who you are and what it feels like to work with you.
Yeah. I'd love to know, I know part of this comes in with the strategy, but how do you help your clients sort of figure out their own brand visually instead of feeling like they have to recreate these images that they're seeing online that might not fit their personality?
Yeah, so I think that's the biggest obstacle because we live in a visual world and we have social media at our fingertips. So we see all these other images. And there's sometimes a lot of this, it's not intentional, but we copy what we see because we feel inspired by it. But I think, the first step is to do that hard work. It's that self-discovery piece. It's that brain dump of really defining who you are as a business owner, how you're different, and writing all the steps out of what your process is like from A to Z, and really defining like what your expertise is and how you can differentiate. And once you get that information, then you can use styling, props, locations. Those are the different stories that become unique to you because now you understand how you're different strategically. Then you're able to pull that visually and tweak the images that maybe you see online, but make it your own. Like that's the problem, is that we're all starting to look the same and we don't want to be cookie cutter. We want to be different than everyone else. But in order to do that, you really need to know what your position is and what your expertise is and do that hard work, that strategy work first.
Yeah. I'd love to know what tips you have for someone who says, okay, I'm ready to get some brand photography done. I want to have something that's personal to my business and that's high quality. How would they go about finding a photographer who's going to fit them and their business and who understands brand photography versus other types of photography?
Right. So, brand photography, like I said, is sort of a newer concept. So, you could, do a Google search and look specifically for brand photographers. And when you go on their sites, I would say definitely see who they're working with. Are they working with, small business owners and entrepreneurs? Or are they working with corporate? Or are they working with bloggers? It's all a little bit different. So you want to make sure that the person that you're hiring has a background in business, has a background in strategy. And in addition, you want to look at their portfolios. You want to look at the style of their photos to make sure that your brand can sort of meet their style. So for example, like if you're looking at a photographer and they're very fashion inspired or edgy, and it looks more like what you would see in a magazine, yet your style is maybe, more of that like girl boss entrepreneurial, and they're bright and clean imagery and it's not edgy, you might not be a good match. So you kind of have to look at the portfolios and then follow up with an interview. That is like so important. You need to pick up the phone and actually talk to your prospects because part of photography is this trust factor and this comfort. If you want to look like yourself and feel natural in front of the camera, you really have to have a good relationship, almost a friendship with your photographer. So you want to make sure you pick up the phone and have a conversation and see how you feel with the person on the other end. And then ask those questions if they have a background with, small business owners. Have they done photography for websites and for entrepreneurs? Do they understand branding? Do they understand social media? Because you might need photos for a launch coming up or Facebook ads. And so you want to make sure that they understand all of those things that you're talking about, because then when you get to the shoot, simple things like, on your website, you might need a lot of horizontal images, but they might not know that because they're not savvy about, website photography for entrepreneurs or businesses. And then all of a sudden, all you have are vertical tight shots. And so you don't have the variety that you need. So little things like that, you kind of have to make sure you're prepared and you're asking good questions so that by the day your shoot comes, you're already nervous as it is. You don't need to be worrying about some of those other things. If you do hire someone who has a background in brand photography, they'll take care of all of that other stuff for you. And you just have to worry about being the star for the day.
Do you have any types of questions you recommend that we ask when we're interviewing people, or things that we should know to be able to tell them, like, I need images for my website or Instagram or whatever?
So definitely, list out where you plan to use these images. I mean, that's just a good practice. So, look at what your year in business ahead. If you're launching something, if you're, have podcasts or speaking on stages, list out everything marketing related that that's coming up. And then share that with your photographer so that they understand what kind of photography needs that you might have. Also, I would say, think about where you want your business to go in a few years, because the photos that you're taking now can help you get there even sooner. And then share that as well with your photographer. Ask your photographer questions. Again, have you done this before? Who do you work with in terms of clients? Have you worked with entrepreneurs before? Also ask about the deliverables. Are you going to give me high resolution images? Are you going to edit the images? Some photographers only, every photographer is different. So in my packages, I offer hair and makeup. I have a whole creative team that comes with me. So that's another question you would ask, do you bring hair and makeup at the day of the shoot, or am I responsible for that? Is there help for styling? Because wardrobe is such a big component, and that causes a lot of stress for my clients. So that's another great question to ask. Do you help with that? Do you have a referral or a recommendation of someone I can work with? So there's like a huge list of questions that you can ask. And this is just sort of like getting at the very surface. But then again, it's like the editing, do you do Photoshop? Do you give me all the images edited, or some edited and some aren't edited? In my case, I only give edited photos because I don't see the point of not giving finished photos, because then you're showcasing and sharing photos that don't look fully polished. But again, every photographer is different.
Right. So what do you say if somebody lives in an area that they don't have a local person who specializes in brand photography, but they really want that for their business? Is there like a different kind of photographer that they should be looking for that might be able to help them?
So I would say if your area doesn't have a brand specific photographer, you could work with, a portrait photographer. Wedding photography is a whole different genre. That's event photography. So that's a little bit of a stretch. But, people who understand light and, know how to work their camera, they might be able to help you. But what you need to do is you really need to sit down together and do a lot of the prep work. You need to talk about, what your business is, and educate whoever you hire, if they're not a brand photographer, exactly how you work your business, what your vision is for your business, who your target client is. You need to download all of that information so that they have a clear understanding of what the objective is, what they're trying to achieve here at the photo shoot. And so that you're both on the same page and can be acting as partners to try to, get at the end of the day, the photos that you want to use for your brand.
Yeah. Okay. And I'd love to know, because this came up in one of my recent photo shoots. I work from home, so I have a home office. It looks pretty nice, for what I can do, but, it's not a photo studio. So if we're trying to show our process, should our images be taken where we actually work, or does it make sense to go somewhere else and get the location to match sort of the type of image we're taking?
You could do it both ways. For some of my clients, so I always try to do what I call aspirational but authentic. So you want to make sure it's real and truthful to your process, yet these are your professional polished images. So you also want it to feel aspirational. So, when you shoot in your office, a lot of the times we're like cleaning everything out just to make sure that the image doesn't, the location doesn't look messy or anything like that. But it is true to like being in your office and showing how you work. But you can also go to like a coffee shop. A lot of my clients, we go to, places where, like a WeWork sort of a place, a co-working space, conference rooms. Sometimes we rent out, here I live in New Jersey, so we can go to New York City. There's a place called Breather that you can rent spaces that are very clean and modern and then sort of recreate your office space there. But what we're trying to do, is also bring in props that really are in alignment with your brand and share your message. So it could be, your planners and your books, your laptop. So things that are still true to you, but they might be in a space that makes it just easier to shoot. A lot of my shoots are done on location. So we'll be outdoors. Sometimes we go to hotel lobbies, or, depending on what your story is, we try to incorporate, a place that kind of could go along with what your story is. And so let's say if you're a health coach, we could be at the farmer's market, or at a restaurant. So, that's where the brainstorming comes in, where we start thinking about locations and props that can kind of reinforce what your message is.
Right. So you want it to look real so that somebody who gets on a video call with you isn't surprised by where you're sitting, but you also want to get really great images.
Exactly. So it's that balance of, again, that aspirational where it's polished and professional, but still authentic, because, you want to be yourself. I'm a true believer that you don't want to come across as something that you're not, because that will be very transparent the first time your client is meeting you or in the relationship. And then there's that mistrust that comes up that you never want in a client relationship.
Right. What tips can you give listeners to help them get the best brand photos, whether that's tips to get comfortable in front of the camera or things that they should know for the day of the photo shoot or any preparation ideas?
So it's never easy to be in front of the camera. I mean, I've had my own brand photo shoot, so I can totally relate in both ways, being in front and being behind. And so I would say you need to prep. To be prepared will help you in your confidence level the day of the shoot. And that means everything from getting your props ready, getting your outfits all organized, trying on your clothes. Clothing is such a big deal because that is sometimes where our confidence can sort of falter, because if we don't feel good in what we're wearing, it shows. So, doing the shopping beforehand, trying everything on, moving around to make sure it fits and feels comfortable, practicing in front of the mirror. It sounds silly, but just looking at yourself in front of the mirror and just practicing different expressions so that you have a comfort level. So at the day of the shoot, you feel a little bit more confident. And then I always tell my clients, remember why we're doing this in the first place. It's not about the photos at the end of the day. It's about the movement that we're trying to create. It's about our why behind the business. It's how we're trying to service our clients. And so that's such a powerful thing that if we can think about that, then it really helps the process of being in front of the camera. And I'll have to say, like, at the end, we're always nervous in the beginning, but by, hour 2 or 3 in the photo shoot, there's something that happens, a shift that happens, this transformation where the women start to really feel confident. They're used to the camera being in front of them. They feel empowered by the message that they're trying to share. Mm-hmm. And they become like these rock stars. It's amazing to watch that transformation and shift. And they become so much more confident. And then when they get their images afterwards and they start sharing them on social media, I even see more confidence and more empowerment and really this up level in their brand that happens, which is quite incredible.
Yeah. And I think we are always our worst critics.
Yes.
So if we see something in our images, that doesn't mean everyone else is going to look at them the same way.
Absolutely. And it's true. No one is looking at you under a microscope and like looking at how, I get the same things. I feel overweight, I'm old, I have wrinkles. I don't like my nose. I don't like this. I don't like my arms. But no one is looking at that. They're looking at your photo and your personality and your passion. They're looking at how your process is being unfolded through visuals, and they're seeing that partnered with your copywriting on your website. And it's that like powerful combination that has the impact. They're not looking at you and saying, oh my God, that's such a bad color, or, how old is she? They're not looking, they don't see that. We see that, but they don't see that. They see, if everything is done right and you've planned and prepped and done the work beforehand, and you come to the shoot and you're really enjoying that spotlight, and feeling liberated and empowered to be taking, we all work so hard for our businesses. And that's a moment where you're actually, expressing yourself and your message. There's something really beautiful about that. And, at the end of the day, when you see the visuals that sort of share all of this work that you're doing through these stories, these photo stories, it's so powerful. It really is.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me, where should they be using brand photography? Because, it is a big investment. And sometimes, people are scared to make that investment. They think, how am I going to use this? And I would say, when you have a brand photo shoot, what you're doing is you're building this library of images that you can use for all your marketing needs. It's a huge asset for your business that I think we don't realize, how much we're going to use this for the long term of our brands. So it's not only just for your website, which is probably the first thing that we put them on. And it's probably the reason why we're doing the shoot in the first place. But you think about, Facebook and Instagram and your blog posts, your ongoing blog posts. Now you have this robust library that you can use. You think about, media kits, images for your bio for podcasts or when you're guest blogging. I mean, it's endless where you can use them. Facebook ads, digital ads. It's just endless where you can use them. So it's such a great investment. And when you do this brand photography, you're creating like a cohesive look, because it's not like you're pulling a headshot from a conference that you went to and then another sort of selfie shots or shots that you took behind the scenes on your own with your cell phone. You're creating like a library of images that have the same aesthetic, the same style. It's like a collection of really consistent and cohesive imagery. And I think that can help your brand become memorable for people because they get used to what your look is like. And so when they see it, they immediately know you, and then hopefully they immediately know what you're an expert at. And that is critical for branding. So I think, photography is such a powerful tool.
Yeah, images definitely are one of the biggest things. They're the first thing people notice on a website. And that's what's going to draw people in to then continue reading your copy and figuring out what it is that you offer. you have to catch them with the images first.
Yes. And I think, visuals also, they can help you tell your story without being pushy or salesy. A picture is worth 1,000 words, they say. And it's true because, when you're sharing photos on a continual basis, sometimes the photos are say more than selling again or being salesy or pushy or promoting. Nobody likes that over and over again. And so photos and visual storytelling can sort of take that pressure off you while you're still out there sharing about your brand.
Yeah. So when do you recommend, like in business, that people consider getting a brand photo shoot? Is it something they do early? Should they be in business for a while before they invest in that?
It's a great question. I mean, I have clients that come with me when they're just starting and they want to start with a bang. And then I have clients that have been in business forever and they're pivoting or shifting. And so they need photos for that rebrand. I would say that the best time to come is maybe 1 or 2 years in, because we all know when we're new, we still haven't really figured out our position or our platform just yet. And so I think the best brand photography is one that is grounded in strong strategy again. And so to be able to know yourself and to know what you're good at and what you're an expert at, to sort of perfect what your process is and to hone in on what that message is that you're trying to share, or even who your niche is, who you're serving, that comes in time. I mean, I know in my own business, it took me a while to sort of get that groove and to get that confidence. And so I think the best timing is when you've had a little bit of experience under your belt, you're experiencing success, and you're seeing that you need photos to share more about your message and your brand. And so when you have that real strong brand foundation and you're sort of in that groove, I think is a good time to invest. Does that make sense?
It does. And that's what I have found for my clients for brand and website design as well, is it's okay to DIY it at the beginning, because you're going to learn who your clients are and things are going to shift and change for, at least that first year before you really nail down what it is you like to do and who you want to work with. And that's when it makes more sense to go in and have a bigger investment and work with someone who can do the strategy with you, because you already know who it is you're trying to reach and what you're trying to share with them.
Absolutely. What I find when people who come to me and they're just new, they're almost asking me to answer some of those questions of who should I be, targeting? Who's my ideal customer? And it's hard for me to answer that, I can maybe give you a general answer based on other people that are doing what you're doing, but only you as the business owner can define that. And that takes time and experience.
Yes, that's so true. And I have one more question. I'd love to know your thoughts on using stock photography mixed in with these brand photos.
Yes, I think it's a good idea. I think, stock photography, now there are so many great options that you can get style stock photography to supplement your brand photo library. I would just say that you need to make sure that it's consistent with your style and your vibe, and that everything sort of goes together. And then just realize that stock photography, other people are using it too. So, if that doesn't feel right for your brand, then you might want to go the customized style photography route, where there are plenty of photographers who specialize in creating, unique styled stock for your brand. So I think it's definitely a good option because we all need tons of visuals. I also would say that you can create your own stock photography with just your iPhone. I mean, I teach workshops on photo styling and iPhoneography because I think it's good to sprinkle in your own DIY photos to keep your brand authentic and real, and then share that every day with your audience. It can't always be professional, beautiful images, on social media. You also need to share the behind the scenes, the everyday, so that there's a human element to that, so that you are authentic and real with your audience.
Yeah. And it sounds like even in the brand photography, there's this balance of being authentic, but also having these really great looking images that can tell your story in a way that the visual isn't distracting from what it is you're trying to say.
Right. I mean, I think your website should have professional images, but, it's not just your website anymore. There's, Facebook and Instagram and newsletters and blog posts. And that's an opportunity to really mix in a lot of stock photography or, your own shots that you're using with your smartphone. And it's the balance, as long as everything looks cohesive and you have defined what your aesthetic and style is before you take any of these photos, it can all come together really nicely.
Yeah. And as a website designer, I always appreciate it when people come to me with either photos that they've taken in their business or images that they've had done specifically for their business. And we're not just looking at stock photography that you might see on somebody else's website, because it really sets them apart. It makes it easy for me to get inspiration from those images.
Right. Because it's true. I mean, design and photography for your website, they have to go hand in hand in order for you to create that overall brand that you want.
Yes. All right. This has been some great information.
Good. I'm so glad.
So I'd love to know why you have found that serving your clients well has been important in your business.
So I really am a strong believer in customer service. I think that is like the basic of any good or thriving business. You need to build relationships with your clients. And I think once you can build those relationships and those deep connections, and act as a partner, not just like a transactional. I mean, I see business as like a partnership. I want to get to know what you're doing and support you and not just deliver the photos, but it's bigger than that because there's opportunity, for both of us to maybe partner or collaborate on something and help each other. So, customer service is something I really strongly believe in. And I think it's just the effects that has later on your business is, you build these partnerships and this loyalty almost, then you get referrals or ambassadors and it's, and then you can do the same for your clients where you can refer them and it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. I love being able to talk about my clients to people who are looking for someone who offers the service that they offer because I know them. And I'm friends with them and I can say, I've never hired them, but I know that they're going to do a great job.
Yes. I mean, and when you're probably the same as me, we spend so much time with our clients and really helping them, communicate their story and their message. It doesn't end when the job is done. I feel like I'm always going to be their cheerleader because I was really kind of in it with them, we were getting our hands dirty together to build their brand. And I continue to support them through social media because I'm always sharing images myself on my own Instagram or Facebook. And so it's a shout out or a tag. So the relationship will always continue even when the job is done.
Yes. All right. So tell me 2 things that you're loving right now. They can be business or life.
So I'm a huge reader. I love to read books. And so right now I'm reading a book called Delivering Happiness, and it's about the Zappos story. And so it's been great. I just picked it up and it's an easy read. The founder of Zappos is the author, and he writes as if he's talking to you. So it's kind of like a cool story to read and to kind of figure out like what the journey was and how it started and how it became so successful. So right now I'm loving that. And then I actually just learned, probably people know this already, but I just learned the app called Slack, which I'm using with my a designer, and I love it because it makes it so easy to communicate all in one place, back and forth. For a while, I was using Facebook Messenger, and that just was getting a little tough to manage. And so Slack is like an awesome new app for me.
Awesome. Okay, so what are you excited about that's coming up in the future, things that you're working on that people can check out?
So right now I am working on a new book that I'm launching soon called the Brand Photography Playbook. So a lot of the questions that you asked me today are in this playbook. It's sort of this insider guide to planning a brand photo shoot. Because, you mentioned this, there are a lot of different places in the country where you can't find a brand photographer, and yet you might want photography for your website or for your marketing needs. And so I put this book together to help those people, learn how to have a photo shoot, learn everything that they need to know, the questions they need to ask their brand photographer, how to, define their brand story on paper so that everyone's on the same page, ideas for locations and props, like all of those things I've sort of put together in a book or this guide, and sharing along the way on every page visuals that I have taken with my clients. So it's like a blend of like a how-to along with inspirational, beautiful images. So I'm really excited about that. I'm in the design part right now. And so I'm hoping that will launch in the next month or so.
That sounds great. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. It's my first book, so it's sort of a learning process as it is. But, it's one of those things, like when you realize people are asking you the same questions, you're like, a light bulb goes off and you're like, I should create something to help more people if it's all the same questions I'm being asked. And then in a way, it's a way to sort of scale your business. As a photographer, my services are only sort of localized because I'm here, right, and I can only serve so many people. But being on different podcasts and speaking at different conferences, I'm learning that there are a lot of questions around brand photography because it is this newer niche. And this is an opportunity for me to help so many people at a bigger level and a bigger scale. So it's exciting.
Yeah. And last question, where can people find you online?
So they can find me online at my website, which is Mikifoto.com, and it's Mikifoto.com. I'm also super active on Instagram, and my handle is at Mikifotoco, so Mikifotoco. And then I'm on Facebook as well at Mikifoto.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. We got a lot of great information.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope it was helpful, and anyone is welcome to reach out to me if they have any questions or need some help with an upcoming brand photo shoot. I am happy to help.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Process to Profitability. Please take a minute to leave an honest review in iTunes so that I can help more small business owners and creative entrepreneurs find the show.